Call it.
Okay, we'll call this workshop to order. It's 3:37, so Dr. Brent, take it away.
All right, yes, sir. So this is a workshop that we talked about holding in, we last were together in April. Our regular board meeting is not until May 18th for this month. This workshop is once again to review our revenue and budget reviews and once again considering case scenarios. Since our last workshop, we've updated a couple of more options for us to start working through into the budget. And before we begin, I'll just sort of give you guys a quick update since we last met. Obviously, a lot of things have happened since the April board meeting, and one of our biggest challenges is not being able to see everyone on a regular basis. And obviously, there's a lot we can discuss about what's happened since we last were together as a team of 8. But what we do know is that school is continuing in a new form, and the school year is winding down. We've been looking at a lot of different data and numbers of things that we've done. You know, we're feeding about 10,000 kids a week. We've distributed over 3,000 hotspots, and we still have more to go should people need them. I was at Pearl Elementary earlier this week when they were serving meals, and people were still picking up devices and hotspots. And so we'll be getting all of that data towards the end of all this to kind of show exactly what we've done. I know that Pam has been monitoring all of our expenses related to COVID so that we can see where we qualify for various reimbursements in that regard. We have, now we're looking at what happens for next year. Right now, we're talking about when we bring everyone back to work and what that can look like. The team is working through, everyone's still working from home. Some people come up here from time to time if necessary for different things, but we're trying to make sure we practice social distance when possible. I mean, at all times, but we don't require people to come up for a meeting. And so we're finding our way through that. We know that July 1 starts a new budget year and a new contract year, and so we feel like we owe it to our staff to make sure that we have a plan for re-entry to work and what that looks like, taking into consideration all the causes, concerns about where we are at that point in time in July with COVID-19 and all the safety precautions that we would need to be considering should people start coming back to work, and to what percentage of building space do we do that. So I think one thing before Pam begins is I'm trying to learn how to work in a little bit of a different way. I feel like our work now in these kind of crisis modes and times where things have been changed drastically is you see priorities that you just have to address right away, and sometimes it can take you away from some of the strategic directional things you're working on. So we're living in a couple of worlds. The priorities of how do we make sure we take care of our people right now and their needs and get academic advancement for our students, how we meet their emotional needs, technology needs, even to a lot of them, their needs for food and how we care for our people. And it's also how do we make sure we're preparing for next year, what next year will look like, what are the scenarios that we could be facing for next year. Do we have school as normal? We don't know. Will it be a hybrid version of, staggered attendance for different schools? We don't know. Will it be online learning again? We don't know. So it all depends on the progress we make as a state and the county and how those governor's orders play out. So we feel like we just have to prepare for multiple scenarios. We do know that we'll have school and we'll be ready to take care of our people whatever the conditions require, and it just means that we have to prepare for more things. So I think our people are working more than ever. They're really putting in a lot of time, and I just appreciate our people for doing that. Landon has gone through the extent to make sure that we have the recording devices the way we need them so the public can consume this meeting, and we will be posting this meeting online so people can see this. We do live stream board meetings, but we do not live stream workshops, but we do record them and we make them available to the public. So with that, I'm going to, yes sir.
I just want to ask a question regarding some of that before we get into the budget workshop part. Landon, do you have any way of knowing of the devices and hotspots we've distributed? Is there any way of knowing
we know exactly.
utilization of those? Like do we? I get the stupid screen time report every Sunday morning, right? Do we know how much those devices and/or the hotspots are being utilized?
Absolutely, yeah. I can run very precise numbers.
Wow, for each device. Mm-hmm. Oh wow, okay.
For every student.
That'd be interesting information to have, sure. At some point in the future.
I'll put it in a board update for you.
Cool, thank you.
And so with that, I know Pam has been working, and also with her is, what are we preparing for and what are the economic conditions going to be? So I think one of our biggest challenges as we start looking into the budget year and forecasting for the future is we feel like we should be able to answer all questions with clarity and knowing exactly what we need to be doing and what's going to come next. And if there's anything we've learned in this experience is we're having to learn to say, you know what, we're not sure yet, but we're working on it. And we're trying to get that solved. And we come to work one day thinking we're dealing with one situation, and then it changes that same afternoon. So Pam will walk you through the budget projections that she's made. There's some different collection rates that we're looking at, the different property values, and how those play out, and what that looks like in terms of budget revenue, and then what we're doing to try to make sure we allow options for the board consideration for compensation. And so there's a lot to cover today,
Yes.
and I think we'll be ready to roll. And Pam, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody. I guess it's been about 2 weeks since we last spoke, and we have a lot to update. Seems like it's only been a day, but let's dive into it. You have your handout at your desk, and as we begin every board or budget discussion, we look at our board priorities. And then we've updated in slide number 3, we've updated the 3-year funding data elements, our projections from last meeting. So some of the changes, I know this slide looks busy, but if you go down, let's just go through the revenue assumptions on the left. Student enrollment, again, is still with the demographer's projections as of snapshot, which is 3.1%. The attendance rate, we're looking at funding enrollment for the funding enrollment number is 95%. Property value growth, 8.9%, and that's the preliminary estimate we received from the Williamson Central Appraisal District. Our frozen tax levy, we're looking at 28.5% and then 99% collection rate. So if you look on the right, this chart is new to y'all, and it was developed to show you the different funding elements in the first section. So as far as student enrollment, so our Templeton projected enrollment right now is at 12,537 students next year. That's a 377 student growth, which is 3.1%. However, for funding, our enrollment number is only 12,367 because we have to cut pre-K totals by half, because that's the only amount that we get funded on. Yes, the state gave us in HB3 the early education allotment and said that money can go towards pre-K and should be able to fund your second day or half day pre-K. However, for funding formula, this is our estimate we're using, 12,367, and if you apply the 95% attendance rate to that, that gives us our ADA of 11,785. And that's the number that we've been working with in all of our projections. So y'all are used to hearing weighted ADA, which is all of our students in special education or the special CTE programs, dyslexia, other programs such as that. So that increases our enrollment number to 15,748. However, we're not funded on WADA anymore. So, but that just shows you how many of our students, or a good weight of them, are in special programs, the opportunities that we give our students. Now, let's talk about tax compression. So the first year of HB3, which was this current year, and I put in our actual 1920 column on the very left, our tier 1 tax rate, which was $1 for, for many, many years, was compressed by 7 cents across the state. Everybody was compressed. So we were compressed to 93 cents. However, this second year of the biennium, this next year, we will receive not only that compression, the 93 cents, or the 7-cent compression. On top of that, we're going to be compressed what is equivalent to reaching our 2.5% property value growth cap. And the way TEA has given us guidance on calculating our compressed tax rate, which, by the way, we will not receive from TEA until early August, prior to adoption of our tax rate. However, we've got to preliminarily calculate a tax rate for budget purposes, since we're a July 1 school district. So at the bottom, under the footnote, you can see how that maximum, that's in CR, is maximum compressed rate, is calculated. And you can see with the 1.025, that's our 2.5% cap applied to our 9% appraised value growth. That compresses our rate from 93 cents, or 0.93, to 87.45 cents. And then we get to add, by formula, the maximum golden pennies, which is 8 cents. So the district has 8 cents available in golden pennies, so we'll apply the complete 8 cents. And that reduces our M&O tax rate from $1.01 this year to 95.45 cents. So for purposes of putting it in dollar amount, if we were to not be compressed, let's say our property values did not exceed the statewide average, which is 4.01, that's what they're going with, which are estimates given by the appropriations, the state appropriation, the General Appropriations Act. We would be levying $1.01 again. So if we levied $1.01 based on our appraised value this next year that we're estimating, our generation of our local M&O revenue would have been close to, or would have been $9 million. However, this 95.45 is generating $4 million in tax revenue. So quite a bit of savings to our taxpayers for sure. Excuse me. So that lowers our tax rate to $1. If we assume our current INS tax rate, which is 32.9 cents, our tax rate will go from $1.339 to $1.2835 for this next year. And then in our revenue assumptions, we're assuming a 99% collection rate. Right now, we're at 99.5 in the current school year. I'm sorry?
They're suggesting 99%, so 99.5%.
So we are coming off of it just for budgeting purposes and due to uncertainties in the economy. We had originally, when COVID crisis was talked about with other area CFOs, everybody had talked about lowering their tax collection rates. Even more. However, in putting it in terms of this first year when tax notices go out and your mortgage payment is due, and most people probably have their tax taken out each month in their escrow, what is the default on their mortgage payment going to be? I mean, it's a guesstimate. Will people really default on their mortgage payments? Will the bank assume those payments if there's a foreclosure, and they'll be paying the tax anyway? So not sure if lowering a property tax collection rate truly is a known revenue shortage. I'm not sure.
One thing that we looked at in the 2011, 12, and 13, when the economy
Yes.
tanked there, the collection rates did not drop.
No,
That's really surprising.
they remain,
Yeah.
all 5 years as we recovered through that crisis, they remained at 99%.
Well, that's helpful, because I was a little concerned that bringing it back up to 99, because I thought at some point we were talking about 98 or something.
And that's when we started digging and
Yeah.
and everyone said, well, right
You
now,
feel
we're
more
fine.
comfortable coming to case back up to 99.
And back then, that was a financial crisis
Specifically
so
related to
specifically
housing.
for
Yeah.
the home loan
And it's still
and
in
bank
default more than
industry.
1%.
Right.
That's-
So if somebody was in default or there was a foreclosure, the banks Sorry. assumed the liability.
Protecting their interests.
Oh, you can't hear me?
Okay.
I'll talk to them.
Pam, I have a question.
Yes.
Are any of the other revenue assumptions changed as
So,
of the current situation, or are those all the same too?
so we did change the frozen tax levy assumption by 1%. We decreased it by 1%. When we received our preliminary property values, our commercial so current residential property, as you may have seen in your notice, is stable or declining. Mine went down 3%, I think. However, the majority of our, not majority, but a huge chunk of our property value is new improvement in Georgetown. So we compared the new improvements of residential versus new improvements of commercial as compared to last year's new improvements. Commercial was going up about 1% and residential was going down. Therefore, truly the frozen values are within the residential of 65 and over. So we decreased that by changing the frozen levy or the collection rate. Doesn't necessarily generate a whole lot of revenue for Georgetown because we're a recaptured district. So truly our new revenue source is students and enrollment growth.
And that is gonna,
So we were just trying to true up the numbers more realistic than the last time we met.
And I think one thing to add to that, and Melanie, we were wondering what is the impact going to be, and what we're seeing the concern about revenue for future school year district funding is in the statewide sales tax and in the oil and gas industry. And so that is where we see the potential for there to be cuts coming in future years as the next legislative session comes in. Right now, what we're being told is money's pretty stable this year. Now, this is, there could be some legislative adjustments to revenue during the middle of the year that some political positions have the option to explore. We believe that's highly unlikely. The biggest concern is what's it doing to future funding with oil and gas and sales tax revenue, and how long does it take us to recover? And that's the greatest concern for school funding, because the easiest way for the state to impact school funding, the most efficient way, is in the basic allotment, which right now I believe the basic allotment is like $6,081 or
$61.60
$61.60
per student.
per student. And so the easiest thing for the state to do is to impact that basic allotment, and that's what we're concerned about for future funding. And so the forecast, not for this year, but for the following years, is the one that most of us are concerned about right now.
So I've got a question, I guess just the practicalities of that. If the state were to do that, when and how do they change that? Do we have to wait till the next legislative session, or, okay?
Yeah, so that would come up in the legislative session, and the challenge is how fast does it recover, and what are the political agendas and what are the political winds going to be? I know we have a big election coming up in November. We don't know yet, what's the attitude going to be towards public education.
But so this is a question that can't be answered for a year.
Right.
Great.
The trick is,
We make all these decisions now.
oh, well, yeah,
We
it's
can draw
it's
some
all about
assumptions, though.
sustainability, right?
Yeah.
It's about,
Oh, yeah.
You can tell there's going to be less revenue.
yeah.
You can tell that.
Yeah, how
You
we
just don't
run
know
Yeah, it's just a matter of
they're
how are they gonna allocate that
how much-
loss.
right.
Right,
Where are they going to find cuts?
right.
Right
And
now,
so then we're playing with whatever we end up doing this year is we, I think we talked about this last time too. I think everybody's temperature was, I don't want to back up, You know, I don't want to get out there and then have to fire somebody, you know, because we ran them in the following year. I mean, that's sort of the heart of what you're,
Yeah.
yeah.
So the state.
David, that's what we're wrestling with too. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So we're wrestling with the same thing. Whatever recommendation we bring to you for budget, we need to be able to determine, okay, where are we and if we have funding reductions. So for example, we looked at what happened in 2011 and through 13, and we've been researching and going back and looking at what happened through those reductions and what the district's approach was and would ours be different, and could we be more strategic with those reductions, and how would we start building that out. I know right now our team is going through different budgets and looking at reductions in different budgets now to prepare for not being too far over our skis, if you will.
Right, that's it.
The biggest thing that we, the biggest challenge, not the biggest, but a significant challenge in all of this is that roughly 84% or 86% of our budget is salaries. 84% of our, 84 to 85% of our budget is salaries. It is people. And that's where we start getting concerned about reductions and how we play that out. And so one of the things that, in working with our strategists and Pam and the team, it is how do we start going through different efficiencies? And we're actually mapping out right now, how do we go through, conduct an efficiency audit of different things throughout next year so that we can prepare for, should we see a reduction in funding? And what, we would have to start that in August, right? And start looking at what, and then, if oil recovers, does the state recover? And it's perplexing, but we have historical trends that we're trying to watch. So,
How, I mean, what, going back to 11, the last recent example in you guys' history, what's the most radical thing that we anticipate that they would do if revenues fall that much short and they do cut our funding? Is there a give and take? Like, do they allow 2 more kids in the average classroom, or what does that look like in order to try to balance out a budget shortfall? How do we ameliorate that?
So the first thing we would do is that very thing. We would have to work through what are our student enrollment numbers looking like? Are we seeing the growth trends? And what is our student-to-teacher ratio looking like? I can tell you that we've been digging through some information, and we have a lower student-to-teacher ratio than our neighboring districts. As a matter of fact, if we matched our neighboring districts in student-to-teacher ratio, as far as all teachers, that's talking instructional, interventionists, etc. When you look at certified staff with that, that's a $5 million difference in our budget if we matched what that number is compared to our peers. I think we are at, right now, I think we're right around the average funding year for 2019 students-to-teacher ratio in the area districts is 15.13 students per teacher in the system. And we are at 13.93. And if we were to match our peers, it would be about a $5 million swing in our budget. And so the first thing
to the plus for us.
To the plus, we would gain $5 million in revenue that could be applied to salaries, etc. And
How
so
do you do that? It's not just a matter of putting 2 more kids in the class, because it's the amount of staff that we have, so that would still be a reduction of people.
you can also do that through attrition. You would have to do that through
It's not
attrition.
replacing people.
Yeah. So we would, our goal is to
This year
not.
they added a 3rd grade teacher to her role, you just wouldn't do it. You
And
just
there's-
take each of those kids, we got 4, we were gonna go to 5, instead, 2 kids are going in.
It's really hard to balance it out, but you have to do it macro level, right, the
Yeah.
entire district, not on a,
Yeah.
because that's almost too dramatic, like, we can't just go from 5 to 4.
No, but I think what you do is not go from 4 to 5,
Right.
right?
Well, so for example, I was having a conversation with a couple of fifth grade teachers, and they have, between the two of them, there's 49 fifth graders. And it's like, if we get one more, are we going to need to add a teacher? But we have a certain student population, and so we're right on that bubble. And, you know, and so some classes are going to have 22, maybe 23. So if you have a class at 23, do you do a waiver and just keep that class at 23, or do you hire another teacher to where you have a lot of smaller classes at that grade level? And that's where it gets challenging, and that is our greatest cost. But that's not the only thing we would do. We would obviously start looking at other things that we feel like, you know, there's some programs that we would have to consider not funding. If it gets drastic, you know, what are some programs we would have to consider cutting as well? And so those are just all of the efficiencies we'd have to start going through. But I think, Melanie, to your point, it's really complicated. You can't just say, okay, every teacher gets one or two more kids in their class, because every school is different, and they're all staffed different, and their student populations are different. And some require more services than others. And so we would start looking at, when we figure our budget, we base it on FTEs, on full-time equivalents, on staffing units. And so we would have to start scaling back through attrition. What do we not replace when we have, if someone retires, et cetera. But there's some positions we would have to replace. And so we would start working through that with district staff. In the last go around, I can tell you that, you know, one of the most drastic cuts was we lost middle school teaming, and it's taken us years to bring that back. We lost academic supports and academic positions that we're still recovering from. So we're trying to say, okay, how do we find the balance of programs, of staffing, because we don't want to go backwards, but we have to figure out how do we become more lean. I think you would first start doing that through something like attrition, because we don't want to just say, okay, everybody, you know, we're trying to avoid that. And it's going to be a year of working through that.
So typically, with the last, to answer part of your question, was they'll stretch it over the biennium. So it'll be a certain percentage reduction the first year, and then the second year. This year, this coming year, since it's not a legislative session, they do have mechanisms they can implement to help the state with their cash flow. And what they would do is defer that August Foundation School Program Fund payment to schools until September. That crosses the fiscal year and allows them to not see that cost, which every district gets a payment in August, even we do. We get September, October, and August. So our August payment will come in September instead of August. But that's how they hopefully won't touch basic allotment this next year, but will just defer our payment, and it'll just be a cash flow type thing. On that question.
Yeah.
Because cutting programming, even if we did reduce programming, that's only a portion of 15% of the budget.
Oh,
It doesn't
right.
move the needle very quickly.
Right.
It's gonna.
And so, you know, when we were talking about if we think there's going to be budget reductions, how do we go through all of these, you know, like we're reducing budgets now, and like we're looking at what's a 5% reduction of these certain budgets across the board, and how much revenue does that generate? Well, it may generate $860,000. Well, okay, that's $860,000. We can put it towards salaries. And so what would that look like, and what we cut? So we'll be cutting travel, right? There's different things that we would be cutting back on to generate towards salary. But you're right, Andy, it's at the macro level, it's made up through FTEs. And so that's where collectively we have to look across the board and see where we can be more efficient without damaging programs, without damaging kids, without putting unrealistic expectation on the backs of our teachers. Like, we don't want to do that either. So we would have to
Yeah.
be careful.
So on this slide, the last thing would be the unknown for the future, some notes to consider on the left-hand side. And of course, in bold is the legislative session coming up, which is what we've talked about, depending on the economy. Any other questions? Otherwise, we can go to slide 4. And this gives us our general fund, so general operating budget projection as it is right now. So included in this is, in the revenue, we are on the list from TEA for fast growth allotment with a 5% increase in student enrollment over the last 3 years. We also included the new instructional facilities allotment in NIFA funds for opening 2 new campuses, Williams and Wolf Ranch. Now on the expenditure side, so that results in our budget, along with some local revenue estimates in here. We reduced for revenue side, we reduced the interest income, and I put it down below, but it should be above. Interest income reduction of about $400,000. So typically we see about $800,000 in interest income in our investments on the general fund side. Cutting that in half because the rate continues to drop and is expected to be there through December of next year, or this coming year. And then athletic revenue, we did a small reduction just based on, are we going to have to continue social distancing once we open school and football season starts? What kind of attendance rate will we even be able to accommodate? So
If we have football.
if we have football. Yes, we are. No. We have to have football. We're Texans.
That's when we put the governor over the edge right there.
Yes.
That's football.
So in the expenditure side, though, we see a big increase in payroll costs because we are opening a new campus, a brand new campus. Yes, Pickett is moving to Wolf Ranch with a larger capacity. However, Williams is brand new. So what that does in this first year to maybe 2 years is create a smaller campuses. So where right now, this school year, we have Pickett and Frost as our smallest campuses with 300 plus students in each. However, we're going to shutter Pickett. Wolf Ranch will open up, probably about 400 kids, but a brand new campus of Williams is going to open up with less than 400 kids, maybe around 400. And then Mitchell will be decreasing, Carver will be, but that's okay, but then we still have Frost under 400 in students. So opening the new campus of Williams is about 33 FTEs, staff members, to open an elementary campus. That includes teachers. About 14 of those positions are coming from our other campuses. However, that leaves quite a bit, over half, still coming out of this year's budget. So we do see quite a bit of an increase in our base salaries. And we've also included the growth of teachers the increase in teachers for student growth.
Do we have this, that column relative to current?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I could have put that in there. Our current salaries, I want to say it is, sorry, I don't have that in front of me.
Well, revenues too, so,
Oh, right.
see what I'm saying?
Mhm. Yes, how about,
That column, and then
sure,
1920 delta.
right.
That would be very
Okay. So I'll update this slide to be posted on the web, but also email y'all with the side-by-side of current
Roughly what's
budget.
delta? Do you have that?
To our numbers, if I had my computer.
Yeah, I know. You just say.
Let me grab that real quick. I have it in a spreadsheet, which is basically our budget recap that we do for the board each month.
Not red.
Let me look at our budget recap from last month.
How long does fast growth money last?
It's allocated for this biennium right now. It's in
2 years.
HB3,
It's 2 years,
Well-
but it's no guarantee of renewal.
unless they modify HB3.
Okay.
So
What was that?
Well, you know, it looks like we qualify. How much is that fast growth roughly? Is it $1 million?
Oh,
Is it
yeah, yeah.
5 million? Is it?
it is, for us, it's 2.8.
Okay, so roughly 2.8 million, but if you start counting on it, the second you don't qualify for it,
It's a bad day.
it's a bad day.
And so over here, that column you've got with the budget impacts, which of those are certain and which are assumptions?
Oh, the certains are everything except for interest income,
Interest income,
athletic
athletic
revenue.
So those two are the only
Yes.
assumptions?
Yes,
Everything
ma'am.
else-
That is it.
And so on the fast growth allotment, that is something that is there's an organization of districts that are lobbying for that constantly, to where, could it go away? Yes. Is it probable? I don't think it's probable that it will go away. However, I think our biggest uncertainty is what's the legislative session going to be? And I think right now, districts are concerned, and there's multiple approaches that districts can take. Some districts are, we know that like Round Rock is supposed to adopt their budget tonight and their pay scale, and they're in a little different situation than some with fund balances. Some districts are spending off fund balance if they're healthier on the fund balance side. Districts with a larger fund balance are usually seeing high economic growth with business development. And they've had that for quite a while. Some districts are being more conservative. Houston area districts, they've all decided they're not doing anything with pay, but they already pay higher than we do. San Antonio area districts are saying, we're not giving raises this year. Central Texas districts are. And then, the balance in the conversations that we're having and I'm having with my peers is, what do you do if you see a reduction in funding? And that's what, each district is unique on how they'll have to deal with that. But there it is, the biggest uncertainty is what does happen in the legislative session. And so we're trying not to use scare tactics. It's just that we're trying to make sure we do something that's sustainable.
So can you give me a flag on that? Like state funding, we're looking at 114,370, what is it this
Do you
year?
want her to use the glass ball?
Right.
Sure,
So,
flag is something she really enjoys doing.
and this actually,
Not against some sort of CFO at all.
let me change this correctly. It should be local funding, it's 114, not state.
Oh.
Sorry.
Oops.
Yep. My oops. And then state funding is 14.
Okay.
So local this year is 111,
State?
local.
Well, yeah, there
These
should
are
be-
reversed.
Those are
Yes,
reversed,
so
right.
just the names.
Yes.
Let me show you here. Let me-
111 is some change estimate?
Right. So it should be local funding, state
Yep.
funding. And then 12,000, or almost, 12 million,
Yeah.
Well, that
almost 13 million,
Commas matter.
yes.
That'd be a problem.
12.9 or 13
Yeah.
is state,
Federal and other.
federal is 1.575. So that went
It's gonna
down
go
some.
down next year.
A little bit because of our Medicaid SHARS
Okay.
reimbursement,
And
that's the
then,
majority.
and then our projected expenditures relative.
So projected expenditures, I don't have it broken down like that. Our current expenditures are 126.
Okay.
As you can see, looks familiar, this is your board
Yep.
report. So 126.2. And like I said, I'll update this graph so you'll have it. I apologize for not breaking it down like that. And we can compare current year numbers to this, but with this projection, when I do a budget projection, I like to show base salaries and then the benefits involved along with all the extra, sub pay and all that. But then the submitted budgets from campuses and departments, which total 26.3. And then we have our staff requests that include maybe some instructional support for campuses. It includes department, just from increasing size of the district, groundskeepers, custodial, those things. And then major purchases, so upkeep of our current facilities. and maintenance or fine arts, anything not in bond, that we can do locally. So these estimates right here include our priority list. So priority staff requests total $656,000. Priority major purchases totaled $564,000 from the different departments such as athletics, fine arts, CTE, along with maintenance and transportation and stuff like and areas like that.
Wish list items, or those
No, I
pretty
can,
much tailored down?
These
Those
are
are tailored.
tailored down.
Yes, like
Yeah.
It's
needed.
not the wish list, that's
No.
the need
No,
list, okay.
this is, yeah, that's the need list, and I can give you what those specific positions are. I can, this is a draft of what those are right here, I'm trying to make sure.
No, I mean, that's
Yeah.
fine, I was
Okay.
just, didn't know, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I'll get that to you guys. Right, but I'll definitely share it with you. I'll get it to
So
you.
just really gross terms, we got $4 million to play with, is that between this year and next year, you think?
Well, but we've used
We're
that
increasing,
for
yeah.
our base salaries for new campus opening
Yep.
and staff.
Yep.
I'm sorry, and student growth.
Yeah,
So
it
really,
looks like roughly the same wash, right? Same result, roughly, between this year and next year.
Yes,
yes,
Right, yeah.
you haven't talked crazy.
Right.
it's a, oops.
There it is. Right, you're opening 2 new campuses and that's
Yes.
eating up all of the extra.
Yes.
Yeah. We got
It's
$4
eating up
million
to 4
bucks.
million,
It's
or
gonna
4
cost us
million.
$4 million just to tread water.
So like when we opened Wagner, it opened with 450 students roughly, and now it has 850 students. So it's become more efficient, but opening.
Well, but I do think that's a really important thing to note. If folks see schools opening right now with 400 out of 800 capacity and they go, what in the world? Well,
We
just look at Carter, just look
Yeah,
at Wagner.
wait a minute, yeah.
Hang tight, there's a reason.
Yeah.
Right.
But we'll let, you know, we never get, I mean, not never, at some point, some schools explodes and it'll work out fine, but, you know, in the foreseeable future, you never get ahead on that, you know, because we're gonna,
Right.
so now, you know, the new Wolf is running at perfectly efficient, at perfect efficiency in 2 years, but we've got to open 2 more, 3 more. You know, so you're,
That's why we think the
that's a part of
fast,
the formula.
and that's why we think fast growth money will continue. But that's also a political thing, but we think the money will continue. But you're right, it is,
Actually, that's a really good point though. Sorry.
no, go ahead.
That's a great point. If the fast growth stops by nature, the growth is
The growth
slowing down.
stops.
By nature, the
By
need to
But it
open
could
more.
be a
Well,
tiny
if
bit,
you're
we
right
may
at
have
the-
just missed the cut.
That's where we were last year.
Exactly.
We missed it by like,
Or they just
Just
put
So
money
we're
to
in
it.
this, we're in
You
the
got
boat
fast
where we
growth
needed it,
now.
but we can't.
yeah,
You're still going, I'm growing like crazy, and they're like, I don't care, I'm not giving you any money.
yeah, you're 9 kids too shy of that. Yeah, yes, yes.
So they do try to, if the money's
That doesn't
available,
make me feel
if they were to get rid of some of the allotments like that, they would do kind of a transitional
Yeah,
grant,
it
but
does help.
so that you don't get cut immediately. Not if we fall off the list and it's still funded, that's something totally different. This is, they had to, you know, cut public ed and, or
Yeah.
rewrite HB3, and now it's not in there.
Yeah.
Because it is part of the formula. Fast growth, you know, basically reduces our recapture payment.
Excessive revenue.
Right.
I love that they changed it. to
I'm
excessive
sorry.
revenue.
I need to
Excessive
quit
revenue, yeah.
calling it recapture. It's
Death tax.
local excessive revenue. Anything, any other questions on this slide? Now we go into our compensation plans. These are the.
One of the
Go ahead.
things, well, so in going through these, what we wanted to do is, this is the first 3 models, or the first 4 models, I believe the ones that you've seen them before, but wanted you to see them broken down. Because we, you know, in this, our goal is to make sure we find something that's palatable for us, that feels like we stay competitive, but we also give the board options. And so we've tried to break each one of these models down for you, because, you know, once again, if, for example, just for example, if you did Model 1, well, you could do a hybrid of Model 1. We could remove some of these items. We can move administrative pay increases with that, and then you can see what that costs. So we wanted to make sure you saw those broken down, and since we last got together, we did prepare 2 more models for us to look at that we're working through as well. So you've seen these first 3 or 4, and Pam can go through those, but we wanted to try to break each one of them down for you. These were some of the ones from our TASB pay system review, and then we did a couple more.
Right.
So go ahead.
So this one, real quick, just to recap, moves our starting teacher salary from 48,000 to 49, and it adds a 2% pay increase for all staff. So as you can see, teachers, that pay scale, it's about a total cost of almost 1.2 million, while if you add 2% for administrators, plus a few adjustments, it's about 200,000. And then 330 for professional, instructional support, coordinators, that kind of thing. And then it just goes down through each of our pay scales, with auxiliary being a big impact because they do have quite a few adjustments we need to make that were recommended to our auxiliary staff, which are food service, bus drivers, maintenance, and custodial.
And we have a list of those adjustments
Yes.
for you.
And I included them
Is that
on your
list?
desk,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Because when we go to the 4th model that has no pay increase, let's go through some of those adjustments. But real quick, let's do this Model 1. So this is 2%. Model 2 is 3%. And of course, the cost jumps from 2.6 million to
Roughly
3.4.
4%. Right, yeah. How about that?
There you go.
Uh-huh.
And then the hybrid that was presented of 3.5 for everybody except for executive directors and directors and cabinet and strategists. And as you can see here, if you look at the cost estimates, if you give 3.5% to teachers plus the professional support and all other staff, that's over $2 million there, while if you want to cut, district admin, maybe from raises or the cabinet chief strategist, you're only going to save about $60,000, right? 68,000 there. But that's what we wanted to see in detail of it broken down. Now we included, on this model, we included campus administrators, principals, APs in the 3.5 because we need to keep up with market. They definitely have adjustments. If you don't give a pay increase, their adjustments are
We have more information to show you on that.
Yes. So if you go to the slide number 8, 0% pay increase, but we do our adjustments only. If you look on your adjustment sheet, the areas impacted from the TASB study included teachers, which was a majority, and we hit almost every year there. If we were, this is going from 48,000 to 49,000, we would adjust all the teachers, the scale to close gaps and do equity adjustments in the tune of about 740,000. And then,
that's not considered a raise?
So there's still a raise there, right?
There's still a
Every-
They get more money, but
everybody on the pay scale or on the teachers, every teacher will get something. If we adjust,
Okay.
if
It's considered an adjustment because it's
Uh-huh.
not,
it's not a flat
we
rate.
have some oddities in our
Right.
system.
So this goes back to the conversation that showed, like when we looked at ourselves in Round Rock, that the gaps
Yeah.
between
Okay.
years.
Gaps.
The
So
graph.
TASB said, if you adjust these scales, it'll put you in, basically even out our line.
Yeah, more, instead of like this.
I think it was year 6, for example, like if there's a bigger gap, more than, is there an abnormal gap for year 6 or year 20 teacher, we would, that year we get a larger bump so that on our pay scale, we would be more closely aligned.
Right.
And that's where we talked about closing those gaps, because we had some glaring gaps.
Yes.
Like,
But
okay,
even in
The
this
chart
scenario,
goes.
we're start, right now today, they start at 48, And in this scenario, they'd start at 49.
Right.
Yes.
So everybody would get
I'm the same
something.
way you are, I'm like.
Everybody gets a raise. Every
Yeah,
teacher
yeah,
gets a
yeah.
raise.
But we can't just call it like a flat % raise because it's
No.
very different depending on the teachers.
Where they are.
And therein lies the complication.
I feel like that's a complication.
Midpoint and that, it's like, yes, therein lies the complication, because to close those gaps, everyone's gonna get a raise. Some teachers will get a greater raise than others, but everyone will get a raise, and then you would know where you would fall in line the next years.
Okay.
And so, yes,
Can I?
It's hard to explain, but I understand.
we would just have to publish the scale and say, here's what you made last year, and here's what you make this year. And you'd have to be able to go look for
You know,
yourself.
by the way, this is the market rate, and look,
Yes.
you're now making the market
Yes.
rate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we know what has been the cause of that gap, and that glaring gap? And how long ago did that start? So that way, if we know what got us there, then we know kind of why we're catching up. Do we know a couple of those reasons?
So before, the districts were different, and then when they got rid of the old step system, districts adopted their scales, and they were all different. Everybody had their own pay scale. But in 2011, 12, 13, 14, or 13, we froze salaries.
Right.
We did not,
I'm sorry.
the district, Georgetown ISD, did not give any raises. And I can remember very well, right when I got hired, it was said, hey, from the board, we need to give a pay raise. All right, we'll do that. And
So prior to you
Yeah.
coming, they were frozen.
3 years in a row.
And
From what I remember.
surrounding districts didn't freeze?
not all
Not
of them
all.
froze.
And why did we freeze?
Budget cuts.
Because that was the budget crunch.
Yep,
There was also a fund balance concern.
right.
You want to
We
speak to
were-
that, because you were here, you remember those,
Right.
So-
walk through that.
There was an immediate
Yes, so,
problem that was
Okay,
happening.
back up, yes, there was a
Yes.
problem, and
Yeah, we
that's
had
how Steve West came to work for the district.
yeah,
And he said, okay, here's your financial issues. Your fund balance isn't where it needs to be. We've got to take a lot of corrective action. We're going to have to freeze salaries. At that same time, and this is a big picture, at that same time, the budget, the economy crisis hit. And so Georgetown was already in a financial situation to where you hired Steve West to come start.
yep.
So do you want to talk to that a little bit?
Right, so we had been in a student growth right before the economy tanked. We had been growing. There was state settle up. We paid a little bit of recapture at that time, here and there. The audited books were not settled up. And so I guess a receivable, which is a settle up from a state, was realized at that time when we switched auditors. So the auditors came, said, hey, we need to make up, and I think it was about $3 million. And where's that money going to come from? It's going to come from fund balance. So our fund balance shrunk from, at that time, I think it was 12 million to 9 million instantly in that year of adjustment. And then Steve came on. He realized, or that adjustment was already made. And then we were already in the budget crisis that we were going into, I guess 2011, that's when he came. And so not only staff, public ed funds were being cut, we were cutting staff, we were cutting budgets, everything else, while trying to maintain that fund balance, which had already shrunk. And so what happens to the pay scale is starting salary doesn't change, so the scale stays for a few years. Other districts may be doing other stuff. And then we're putting money into, as much as we can, into fund balance once we got through that budget shortfall, budget reduction by the state. And money was, being put back into public ed the next biennium, slowly, that we were trying to beef up fund balance once again to our 3 months of expenditures operating. And in doing that, Pay raises were slight. I mean, there were maybe 1%, 1.25 or whatever. We did not change the starting salary for teachers very much because that changes your whole scale, and then it becomes very expensive to add a pay raise. So if you could stay competitive with the other districts and just not raise that starting salary, and then boom, competition went through the roof, in the last probably 4 years, and we started raising that starting teacher salary. That moves our scale midpoint automatically. However, if you don't move it enough because it's very expensive, in the other areas to close gaps, which we weren't able to do. So we haven't been able to close those gaps that we talk about in the later years like we should. Some districts receive a TASB study every year, a review every year to adjust their pay scales, which we could have done. However, we knew the dollar amount. Steve knew the dollar amount was $500,000 or $1 million to do that every year.
Didn't matter.
It didn't matter if you were going to give a raise to everybody because the raise is all we ever gave. I mean, we couldn't do replacement equipment any longer. We couldn't do replacement buses. There were no major purchases done. Or staff even, added, like, Dr. Brent said, it took so long to get teaming back in middle school, and that's why. So the teacher's pay scale fell behind, and it was over years that those gaps were never addressed and just kind of went.
And is
Almost
there
10
some,
years, almost
is there
10
some,
years old.
Yes.
is there some items that we know, like, neighboring districts, did they attack the teachers' raises to become more competitive quicker, but they didn't offer this, or they didn't have this, that's kind of where our focus was. Do we know? Like, why were they able to do that?
So a lot of that depends on the health of their fund balance. And the fund balance is just a reflection of governance efficiency over time. Internally, and economic growth in the community with businesses, et cetera. So in 2011 through 13, I think we were also losing student enrollment at that time. And so we've kind of thrown some stuff together that's sort of a draft version of some different numbers, but I handed you some of the things that kind of give a little bit of a history of that time period. And
That's very helpful.
and it kind of goes through some things. But so Marcos, this is where not all districts share everything they do. But what you can see is, for example, they may not offer middle school orchestra.
Correct.
Right?
I don't know, but you're telling me.
Yeah, they
That's
don't,
good.
right? A lot of our peers don't offer it. And so there's some programs that cost money that, for example, we were wanting to offer middle school dance this year, but we realized we couldn't afford to add that this year because we're not sure what's going to happen there. So we felt like that was a program we weren't going to be able to offer yet. But then Pam has a program that we've been using for a few years now. She's starting able to get better analytics. But it's difficult to get comparisons from districts, even on things like administrators, because they'll title them different or label them different.
So that hits on something, and while you're going through that, and thank you for explaining the history, because I really wanted to know that helps me understand what's happening today. On the same scale, like, is there a labeling? Is there some key things that I believe it was the cabinet and chief strategist positions, or different positions where we showed that we were above average, but yet is there some items that are true that weigh that heavily to skew that number and say, man, this is the reason why, or what's the reason on that end we were higher than average, but I'm understanding why the teacher end was below average, but is there a reason why that one got beefed up and hit so hard overall as a strategy by the district, or is it like how we label it compared to other districts? Is it a combination of different items?
Yeah, that's
Long strategy.
Yeah, it's a combination of a lot of things, and I think the easiest thing to explain is in trying to tell our story compared to trying to compare ourselves to other districts, it gets pretty complex. For example, Leander may have a coordinator, but they'll have levels of coordinators, where that we may have a director that counts as an administrator, but a coordinator level
That's not.
3 in Leander won't count as administrator, but they make more than one of our directors. And so, you know, we could start doing that, but then it looks a little goofy.
Skewed.
Yeah, and so, but, you know, then when we also compared ourselves, like, one of the most common comparisons we've heard in all this was Round Rock. And so when you compare ourselves to Round Rock, there's thousands of dollars difference between their salaries and our administrator salaries, but it's about a $547 difference between our teacher midpoint and their teacher midpoint. And so, you know, it's hard to compare apples to apples because they do it differently. And then one thing I would say I think we're a little awkward in right now in Georgetown is economy of scale. When I had 20,000, 21,000 students in my previous district, I would have administrators, a lot of the same numbers because some of the services still have to be provided, but you know, you can serve more campuses with different level positions. And so we're not quite small enough to not have some of these supports, but we're not big enough to be super efficient. So we're not as efficient as some of our larger peers that we're often compared to because we don't have the same fund balance resources, and we also, the economies of scales and efficiencies aren't quite there yet. Like in prioritizing for things, you know, an example is we're going through maintenance and operations budget, and it's like, we need a new groundskeeper crew. Okay, we need some more groundskeepers, but now they have to have a truck and a trailer and lawnmowers and all that. So
You gotta fix all that stuff.
yeah, so we told Kirby last year, you can't have that groundskeeper crew. Well, but then we're adding sites, and people are like, how come the grass isn't mowed?
Right.
Well, because we didn't add a groundskeeping crew yet because we were sending that money to. So we're in that weird balance in staffing, and so I think the clearest thing for us to try to focus on is how do we talk about the dynamics of Georgetown, and so with Georgetown is our story right now, if you look at our greatest expense on staffing, is that we have fewer students per things like teachers than our peers, but we also make a little less than them. But we also will tell you that our elementary principals are really underpaid compared to our elementary principals at Round Rock and our directors and our assistant principals. And so in the recommendations for adjustments, you'll see some adjustments because we have administrators working more days than a Round Rock administrator and making less money. But our teachers are not paid as high as Round Rock, but the gap isn't as great. And so we've been trying to make sure we take care of that gap. But it's also the Georgetown story right now is, you know, if we matched our peers on number of students per teachers, you would generate about $5 million in our budget, roughly speaking, that could go to salaries. And so how do we start peeling that back, and how do we try to be efficient with administrators as well? And so we've shuffled administrative positions around, we've changed titles, and I think I didn't communicate that well enough, and it also hit at the right time where the House Bill 3 raises were really sensitive, and it just kind of blew up on us. And so, you know, we owe clear communication about what those roles are and what they do. But overall, it is, you know, looking at efficiencies and trying to tell that story in a clearer picture is what we're working through now.
You know, that question of teacher-student ratio inclusive of things like teaming, you know, because that affects that as well, of course. So that is a fundamental governance question.
It's a beliefs question.
It's a belief question. That's the kind of thing I think we are supposed to be talking about is, you know, are we, not so much lawnmowers, but,
right,
you know, what is our commitment and belief about that issue, and is it worth $5 million? You know, or do we think we're better off strategically speaking, getting the teachers an extra $1,000, but they got, you know, 25 kids? I don't know, but you said that, and I don't want that to just kind of skitter by, right? I think that sort of question is a deep, deep question that this group is supposed
Can
to
you
answer.
fast forward to this?
And I'll add to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll add to that because one of the very things that we've been working through with elementary principals is, for example, here's a great, and talking about other districts, et cetera. So interventionists in Georgetown have been around a while and they play an important role.
Yeah.
And working with principals on our academic team, what interventionists do is they intervene when students aren't learning what they were supposed to have learned at certain levels, and how to provide tier 1 interventions with our interventionists to help close that gap and get kids where they need to be. Well, over the last couple of years, we've realized, our inadequacies in assessment systems that are a reflection of the years past, and that we're trying to compensate and build, and there's some mistakes we've made, but the bottom line is how to provide better assessment and instructional support for teachers. And so one of the things that we've been talking about is we have, for example, if every elementary has 2 interventionists, let's say, and they don't, but let's say there's 2 interventionists. They're spending a lot of time providing intervention that could have been addressed in the classroom to where they could spend, if we provide better instructional design and support to the classroom teacher and instructional coaching, our research and everything that we've looked at says that instruction delivery and content will improve, and the interventionist role can focus on deeper intervention needs. And so
might mean you need less, right?
Right. So
As you grow.
so you have like tier 1, tier 2,
Yes, in a
tier
way
3
you can almost
interventions.
hope.
Exactly.
Well, you kind of do.
The
It's
point
like,
is that you don't.
Point
it's like a good thing if you need
Not in that
fewer
way.
fire trucks. Yeah.
Right.
And so what the principals are like, we would rather have interventionists, we'd rather have an instructional coach with an interventionist. So for example, one of our elementary campuses only has 1 interventionist. So in the staffing request, you'll see new to the budget, 2 teacher instructional coaches. And so that way every elementary would have at least 1 interventionist and 1 instructional coach. And all they do is work with the grade level teams on delivering instruction and the instruction they design, so that the intent, and we can walk through that, is we're helping them and giving them support. That's not an administrative threat. It's not someone that is evaluating a teacher. It is someone that the teachers know that they're going to walk beside the teachers through the instruction and design. And so what's been interesting over the course of this last year, and which I'm really, another reason I really don't like this COVID thing, is that I was hopeful for the progress that we've been making. In that, we realized that we've got to get better at providing instructional support with principals and teachers. And how do we improve that? And governance level, you're starting to talk about now knowledge development and transmission through our systems. So we have direction, vision, mission, beliefs. We've been working through all that, learner profile now. How are we developing the knowledge and the information and getting it into the classrooms and supporting it? And so the budget adjustment that we're looking at making for that position request are those 2 positions. That's in that $656,000. And it's also, though, principals working with their staff to provide instructional coaching at the classroom level. And so it is an add to the budget, and it's an add that we think we should make. And it's part of the, also it's something that, these are the things that that if we're not careful and if we build out for the future, these are the things we don't want to cut later, because then what we're doing is stripping supports away from classroom teachers and just saying, now you've got to fend for yourself. And we need to provide support to our classroom teachers at the campus level.
I think that's between what you've always talked to me about is learning for everybody.
Yeah.
And so that's direct learning from the teachers, not just, here you go, you got a job,
Yeah.
keep on going, you're doing great, because good teachers can become better teachers can become great teachers can become excellent. And so I feel like that's what these type of coaches do and could potentially do is do that. It's always help people get better. And for this, like the teachers that are doing the interactions. So I love to hear that, because I think that's great.
And that goes with the beliefs of the middle school teaming. It's like, okay, how do we protect the things that are inherently right for kids, and how do we give our teachers the support they need in that process?
And what are we willing to pay for that?
Yeah.
That's kind of the heart of the conversation.
That's where I was, so I don't know if this is where, this conversation's going, I know you still have 2 more pay scenarios, man. Maybe we should just get through that before, because I've got another question to
Okay.
hang on to for.
Okay.
Okay. So on the adjustments, let's go to,
Hang in there, Pam. Okay, you want me to walk you through this
I
one?
mean,
Yeah.
that's a big
Yeah.
rock in the middle of the room, but I think,
Yeah.
I do
real
like that.
quick note on the zero pay adjustments only. You can see professional and technical is about 240,000. That's
Instructional, technology, instructional coaches. Yeah.
so it's that, it's DLCs, it's.
I'm sorry, digital learning
Yeah,
coaches,
digital
yeah.
learning coaches and stuff. Those positions, including, speech paths, occupational therapists, diagnosticians, that fell behind due to the increase,
Those were some of
salary
the
increase that. the
emails that
teacher-
you got last summer.
Yes,
This fixes those.
yes,
With
And-
good reason.
and keeps
Ma'am?
them
With
ahead.
good reason.
Yeah,
Right.
it needs to be fixed, yeah, it needs to be, and when that happened, we were like, oh no, we need to
Yeah.
fix that in the next
It
budget.
was
And-
a oops.
Yeah, so, but this is also important because this is trying to build the right supports. So digital learning coaches, because they've been spread exceptionally thin, and a digital learning coach is supposed to walk beside teachers and using technology to deliver better content aligned to standards, et cetera, et cetera. They've often been used to help reboot my computer, right, as a technician. And so, Lannon's over here saying, wait, my digital learning coaches are being technicians and not coaching teachers. And so,
Yeah, fixing that.
I just asked Lana to.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
yeah. But you can't use distractions for that now.
Yeah.
And so what the team's been working through is, okay, digital learning coaches, they probably live more in the academic house, but they're great at delivering certain technology. And so we're concerned there about making sure that pay is equitable because, we have some really talented people in those roles and they take on a big, diverse role. But that means there needs to be some technology support because I think Lannon's working, relatively speaking, with the same technology support numbers we had in 2015. And then we've increased 2 bond elections, the number of devices that we distribute by thousands. And so the digital learning coaches have had to close the gap of technology support and have not been able to provide the instruction support. And so those are the dynamics that the team's been working through in our staffing requests. And so when you see this salary adjustment, that takes into consideration some of those positions that are high leverage positions or services we provide that allow our other people to do their work. And so, anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, do you want to speak to these?
Okay, so since we last spoke, I was like, all right, Pam, we think Round Rock's going to take their current scale and add 2%, and they could be voting on that tonight, May 7th. And so should that come to fruition, which I expect it to unless something happens at that board meeting, this is scenario what it would cost us to match Round Rock ISD with their 2021 pay scale as we see it going forward. And it is a 2% pay increase to teachers only, and the starting pay goes to $50,000 for a first-year classroom teacher. Right now, we're paying $48,500.
48.
48. We're paying 48 right now. Okay? You can see that cost. If you did a 1% pay increase to all other staff, it's going to cost you $346,000. And then the all other pay scale adjustments is $670,000. And Pam, do you want to speak to that?
So real quick, you don't see adjustments for teachers in there, you see all other staff, and that's because by moving the pay scale as this would, it would fix all the adjustments. So every teacher would get a pay increase of 2%, but that starting salary going from 48 to 50, and then changing the pay scale to match clears
includes
all.
They get a huge
Yeah.
raise.
It clears all the adjustments. It
Basically,
closes
you
all
would
the
be
gaps.
basically you would
And
adopt
then
Round
raise
Rock's pay scale.
Yeah.
And
I've
that's
got
what
a quick question, and that's why we are zeroing in on Round Rock for comparison, because I know that conversation came up last year
Several
a
times.
lot about apples to oranges. So what is it that made us decide to look at this one to compare ourselves?
for that very reason.
Yeah.
So you would know so we could see if we really are able
Because we
to.
kept getting that
Because
question.
And now,
we were
if-
getting,
It was more Round Rock than Leander or Pflugerville or anything like that.
And
It's
now,
just
if
up the
they
road.
do in fact adopt this, is that gonna throw off the market rate that's then gonna throw off our
Oh, yeah.
adjustment numbers?
It's
Back to
always,
scenario
it's
one.
always
Well-
chasing
No, no, no,
Yeah.
no,
Michelle.
no, 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 I
No.
think she's saying,
Yeah.
this is assuming, we already know what they're doing. So we're gonna meet,
No, no,
No.
no.
We're
This is
matching them.
matching them.
correct, yeah,
But if
No,
they
but
match
that's
their
catching
adjustment.
them based on their new
yes,
yeah.
yes.
pay
yes.
scale.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay.
except for number
Yeah.
6.
So that,
Number 6
scenario
is-
number 4, that's just adjustments,
Right,
would bring us in line.
no,
No,
that does,
That's
that would
scenario
throw us
6.
out
It
of
may look like
market.
that.
They've moved the bar again.
yeah. This
So
is,
we would have to relook
Oh,
an
yes.
adjustment to become comparable.
no,
No, adjustments just fixes our scale, you know, makes it, closes the gap
But it
from
compares it to
Georgetown.
market rate, right? And obviously, it's.
Yes.
Round
it
Rock
would
kind
move
of
us
an
closer to
outlier?
the market rate,
Right,
yes.
but is Round Rock
The
an
market
outlier?
rate as of
Okay, okay,
time
that
study.
was
Yeah.
my, yeah.
So every time anybody votes a new budget, then it changes all that.
Right,
So
Let's
it's, again, it's always
is
chasing.
it,
But Matt,
is this
what-
correct? If, assuming Round Rock votes in an hour, and we walk back in here tomorrow,
uh-huh,
we can look at number 5, and we're exactly where they are.
yes,
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 Their new scale. as
for
of
teachers.
24
For
hours.
teachers, not
multiple
administrators.
Yeah, not
This is
anything
what it
else.
would
That's
cost
what
us
that's
to
at.
match that.
2.4
So their
million.
budget they're about to adopt.
Can we add $1?
Like the,
okay.
I don't think,
I like that.
Pick this, the new
Yes.
big part.
So moved.
So let's look at 6, because this
this is your question.
This is the
Alyssa.
current 1920 Round Rock scale. And if we adopted that current scale,
Yep.
it would cost us $1.8 million. Now, if we did a 2% one-time pay to teachers only, it would cost us 1.013 retention incentive, right? That's what that should be, okay?
Gotcha, okay.
And then if you did a 1% one-time pay all other staff, it would be $346,000, and then all this pay goes. So there would be a reoccurring budget impact of $2.5 million. So know that next year you got to have that money, but it'd be a total impact of that. And the
3.8.
1.35 is not. So we wanted to show you what that scale looks like. Now, going back to the targets, that would put you way over a lot of those targets, and you know, but the bottom line is Round Rock gets brought up a lot, and so we wanted the board to see what we look like compared to Round Rock, even though they're 3 times, 4 times, I don't know, 4 times our size,
50,000 kids?
50,000 kids.
We're 12.
Yeah, and we're 12,000,
Yeah.
but we're compared to them, and so
Well, I think it's fair because
they're our
an
neighbor.
employer,
Yeah.
as an employee, you can drive 8 miles that way or 6 miles
Yeah.
this way.
Yeah.
So we owe that. I mean, it's a legitimate concern, and so we thought, okay, if we want to,
So
that's what it would take.
scenario 6 would put us to where they are. If we're just talking teachers, would close all the gaps, would fix our scale, would put us to where they are right now. So we'd be 2% behind if they vote tonight.
Which is not a big number.
Because the
it
one-time
is
pay
2%.
doesn't roll
In the
in.
headline, it sounds like a big number.
Yeah, exactly.
The 2% one-time pay won't roll in to the scale. So next year, when we're planning for the following year, we're
You would have the
2%
2.5 million.
behind.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
If we do number 5, what is that a percent increase over where we are?
It varies per teacher. Depends on where they are on the scale.
Is
And
it
I
at
can-
least 2%?
Well, last year's
Yeah.
first-year teacher just got a $2,000 pay raise
Right,
plus more.
that's,
This year's first-year teacher,
5.
she just got a $2,000 plus dollar pay
4.5
raise.
or 5%.
Uh-huh. I could calculate it real quick because I have the scale, but I have to.
Well, I'm getting thrown off why it says 2% pay increase.
Me too.
But you're
If
saying,
it
no, it's like
changes.
5%.
Yeah.
Why would we ever say it's 2%?
No, 2% added into the scale, to their
To Round
current
Rock's
scale. This is Round Rock's plan, basically. They're on the.
Oh, 2%
number-
to Round Rock scale, not
Yeah.
our scale.
No,
Yes.
not ours.
Yeah.
So this is Round Rock's.
Putting the wrong numbers on.
Yeah. Yeah, that's confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is,
Well.
We may need to change the language.
number.
This is Round Rock's
Right.
plan.
Yeah.
so the 2021 Round Rock pay scale has a 2% pay increase
To
for
Round Rock teachers.
Yeah.
Round Rock
Yes.
teachers. Yeah.
So if we match
we're already
an
to
hour, it's
2.5%.
gonna be an additional 5%.
Yeah, basically.
Oh, yeah, for our teachers, it would be
Yeah.
anywhere from 2
Yeah.
minimum to, it could be 5 or even more.
Yeah,
Oh,
gotcha.
yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
But you know, that number.
Yes.
Like, we can also do this, that number 4.
Oh, we would work those percentages. We would work all of those percentages for whatever,
Oh, yes.
we're just trying to give you dollars now. and-
Right.
And all those percentages to, you know, Elizabeth's point is, those are about optics, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's,
Yes,
but you know, if you look at, the Model 3, which to me was, you know, we're probably not there yet, I'm just jumping ahead, but.
You can go, no, this is
The
your
Model
workshop.
3?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Model 3 was certainly, you know, this, I guess, the third time we've looked at this, and just, my gut is that was the most thoughtful one,
Right.
the most carefully constructed one, and it's, you know, it's roughly
yeah.
this, I mean, it's not any more expensive, or that, you know, I mean, it's roughly the same $1.
Yeah. The reason we gave you those options to look at is because of the fact that that is a district we're compared to a lot.
Yeah.
And there are
Why
most,
don't you just do what they did?
yeah.
Don't
there-
we win if we go with Model 3 though, based on the comparison?
I feel like we do.
I feel like that,
Well-
that was what they said.
It probably would get us pretty darn close to theirs. It might be right on to theirs that they're adopting. So it doesn't get them exactly onto their scale, you know, as far as differentiation between the years, like they have it. Ours would be a little bit different from what TASB ran as a model. But it gets us pretty darn close. We wouldn't be
I think it
behind
speaks to
by.
that, you know, it's such a clear, to me, it clearly states our prioritization of those frontline teachers, you know, the folks, you know, we've made a conscious and intentional effort to push the money to specific places as opposed to number 5, which is you just
Teachers.
literally take the whole thing and live at 4%, you know?
But I would like to see what Model 5 was using our percentage increase, not Round Rock's percentage increase.
We could break that down.
So like
Yeah.
the teacher increase for the Round Rock model on 5 is a lot more than
Correct.
ours on 3.
That's true. It'd be like 4 and some change.
That's-
We're proposing
that's
3.5. Yeah,
That's
that's
what I
what you're
want.
saying.
So I'm curious, yeah, so
Yeah. Yeah.
where is that difference?
Yeah.
How is that?
We would have to we could calculate that and we not calculated that percentage
But
of what
why
that.
is it, if ours is 3.5% and theirs is 2%, why is
Because
theirs?
we're already
But
2.5.
we're
Because
already
this is their
behind.
number?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's theirs.
They're like staffing number. Their number
No,
of
that's our
teachers.
staff
This is ours.
on their scale that they're proposing.
So basically
So we have
what,
to get up to where they are and then.
Right,
get
our
that.
scale is, yeah.
so basically number 5 is if they, Round Rock took their 1920 pay scale and gave everyone a 2% increase
On their pay scale.
on their pay scale,
Yeah.
that's
And we
what
try
it
to
would
catch
cost
up with
us
that.
to match that pay scale. So if I went and got their scale and brought it over here and adopted, it would cost us $3.4 million to do that.
Well,
And it would be a bigger percentage increase for our people
Yeah.
than our version 3, more than likely. And so what I hear you saying is, we would like, as a board, to know what that percentage
Yes.
increase of option 5 would look
Yes.
like applied to our
Yes.
people.
Yes.
Did I
Because
agree?
it's a much better number.
Yeah, it is a much better number.
Much better
Yeah.
looking.
We were just trying to show you how Round Rock, what their approach was.
No, that's really helpful.
Yeah, it's super helpful.
Really. It's hard for us, I think, to get a vague notion of what they're doing and hear that it's a comparison, but not ever really be able to apples to apples.
so the next slide shows you, this is this year, after the big pay increases were given last summer, how we're in green, how much of a gap there is between Round Rock's current scale and our current scale. And where our scale, you can see the dips and the linear out at, you know, 16 to 25 years that need to be more of a upscale
Yeah,
type
and so
line.
this is where we talked about in the recommendations
Yeah,
for
the big
TASB,
dash, yeah.
those adjustments. So for example,
There's some weird one in there.
yeah, like
Yeah, right here.
year 8. Okay, so year 8 needs to be caught up and leveled out.
There and there.
That's what those adjustments are. And it doesn't make us on the same playing field, but it does make an adjustment.
So Round Rock their current scale is changing even more tonight, most likely, because they're increasing their starting pay from 49.3 to 50. So that's gonna elevate it, plus they're adding 2% to that. So that's where you get, if we threw all of our teachers onto their scale, it would be 2.4 million on their future scale, their next year's.
I kind of have a bunch of random thoughts. Number one, I hate to compare ourselves to anyone. I mean, I hate to compare ourselves to Round Rock. That's no more fair than comparing ourselves to Jarrell, who pays a lot less. I mean, we're not either of those districts. We're geographically in between them. We're philosophically, we're not the same. And I want to resist the temptation to compare ourselves to what they're doing. Again, a random thought. Something really cool about the idea of a starting salary of $50,000. That's really cool. I think that would be a great anchor point. Again, random thought. But what I really think we need to resist is the temptation to be seduced into thinking that the market, the job market, the economy, and things have continued to get better since this time last year. And I'm not going to beat my fist on the table or anything like that, but I think that things are a lot different. And if we're thinking that we can take and throw a bunch of money at something and fix it, we maybe could for 1 year, and the numbers may be there for 1 year, but to do something that's unsustainable makes us look bad, really bad in the long run. And I don't know how to model that. I don't know that we can, because again, the most bold thing that Pam put on there was we don't know what's going to happen in the next legislative session, but I think it's fair to assume that things won't continue to be the same, that public education won't continue to be looked upon like they were in the last session. And I just beg us to keep that in mind when we're mixing these ingredients together to make the pie, because I love the idea of giving raises, and I love the idea of showing, I love these ideas, but to do something that's not sustainable, I think hurts us in the long run. And I think as a taxpayer, as a business owner, these are not things that we're looking at. We're literally 90 days ago, we were thinking about a lot of these things. And I mean, that's just how quickly the world has changed. And so I may get myself into trouble with staff, potentially the community, for saying that, but I think we don't take the view that we would have 90 or 120 days ago, certainly not 12 months ago, and apply those same lenses to this budget. That's my thought.
And that's why we talked
And
about
we've got
the
a lot of
option of
different
one-time
options,
pay.
yeah.
I mean, the one-time pay helps with sustainability.
Yeah, for sure.
If the revenue forecast turns out to be correct in what we're budgeting, then we could maybe.
One other thing to add on there. It seems like in the past, we have, survey may be too strong of a word, but we've gotten input from teachers on particularly student-to-teacher ratios. And have we done that recently? And it seems like we've used that feedback to help formulate a choice. We're choosing to go with smaller classrooms, which may yield you less pay, but you have a smaller classroom.
Right.
And
Katie, I have never heard that in person from anybody but you. Like, I have never heard a teacher say, I feel like my class is small and that's great. I hear my class is too big, I don't have enough support, and I'd like to drive to Round Rock and get $500 more. It's a labor pool. I can work any place, and if I can make $500 more down the road, I'm gonna do that because I gotta feed my family. And just like you can go to Gerald, the philosophies are different for sure.
Right.
Everything is very different culturally, but when it comes to dollars, I have the ability to go wherever I feel like is going to be the
And that's
best.
fine. I don't ever think we told someone they couldn't leave if they felt like getting $500 in another district
I'm just
was
saying,
a
it doesn't
better
come-
deal.
It doesn't come down to, I don't like the way that they're doing things in Gerald. We have staff in
I've
Roanoke and
heard
Gerald.
the
and
opposite too,
everything.
though. I've had teachers tell me they prefer working here because we do provide DLCs and interventionists and a little bit smaller class size.
I think Melanie's right. It is absolutely a marketplace.
Yeah.
And an ideas marketplace, and in those ideas are pay and classroom size. And maybe, I don't know that we probably don't have the time in this budget cycle, but at some point, consider getting
Ask
input
that
and say, hey, we would love to give you more. We can pay you another $1,000. Would you be willing to take, on average, 1.3 more students per class? Because that's how you get that
Are we going to get into
done.
that? Are we going to
Yeah,
discuss
that's where I
this?
was-
Yeah, because I want to know what the practical implication of when we change our student-to-teacher
1.2.
ratio from, 13.93 to 15.13. What does that look like
What
in a
does
school?
that look like in a
What does that
classroom?
mean?
Because no teacher, like to Melanie's point, no
Besides
teacher
getting
I've
rid
ever
of
talked to has
92
had 15.13 kids in their classroom.
Right.
They all, and maybe that's just the ones that we talk to. Maybe there are small classrooms, but everyone that we're talking to are like, man, I've got
22
20.
kids.
Yeah, exactly. And so, it's a,
That is a confusing stat because there is nobody that has 13 kids in a class.
So that's
Yeah.
the challenge, is when we get those numbers. We've done it before where we were able to filter through and get the actual classroom teacher numbers. But here's what's gonna skew a lot of that. A lot of your high school classes vary in size, singletons and such. And then you also have, so for example, an instructional coach or an interventionist is gonna count to that number.
But they're not in the classroom
Right.
teaching.
But that's how it counts on,
Paper. it does.
Paper.
Yeah.
and so I believe we've been able to, Lisa,
We do.
We do
I
have
read
that,
the
right?
master schedule
Yeah.
and pull out our classroom teachers
and we can
and get
that
our
number.
ratio that we publish on our brag sheets and stuff, which are truly classroom records of teachers of record.
Mhm.
And that you get your 18 and your 19.
But I think that is something that could be better explained when we're looking at this, and there's a difference of 1.3 students, that it's not really that there's a kid and a half added to one classroom and taken out of another. It's that we have those instructional coaches and
Yes.
those other
The
resources
support.
that backfill the teacher's ability to teach. And that's what I need to get a better understanding of, is what is the impact. If we go to this,
Yeah.
different ratio, the average ratio, what are we losing? It really isn't just a matter of the number of students inside any given classroom. It's other support
So,
and
yeah, and
resources
so,
that are moving.
so here's what's interesting. This is where you kind of stop also comparing apples to apples, because, for example, some of our neighbors that are larger districts, class size waivers are a common thing, and they'll do 150 of them, and we may do a very small number. And so it kind of becomes a culture thing on class size waivers. So, in some districts, that's not a big deal to them. In some districts, it's a really big deal.
is it fair to say that whatever numbers we're recording on here for other districts, they're using the same formula, like the
It's the
yeah,
taper.
suppose-
It's
okay.
apples to
Okay.
apples.
That's all
Okay.
apples to apples there.
where administrators may not be. This is,
Yeah.
Right.
okay.
So Lisa could speak to class size as far as our smaller campuses that may only have 2 classes per grade level versus New Hampshire that may have 5 or 6 or 7 classes per grade level and can spread out kids. Lisa, can you?
Yes, can y'all hear me? I'm having a hard time hearing y'all.
We can hear you.
So I think Pam, the last time we just looked at classroom teachers, I believe it was about 19 to 1 or 19.5 to 1.
Yes, for elementary. Or overall, elementary is typically about 18.
Yeah, for sure. And so yeah, the size of the campus definitely affects how efficient we are in the classes. So Cross, for example, has 2 teachers mostly per grade level, sometimes 3. And if you
Because
Lisa, off the top of your head, Lisa, do you know how many class size waivers we did this 1920 school year?
Yes, sir, I think it was 5, I think we did 4 or 5 maybe total, versus, I think Leander, last time I checked with them, they done 130.
Couple more.
just a couple, I think we did 2 last year, maybe, 2 waivers. The previous year. And so you're going, if you add a teacher like at Frost or whatever, your class size then is going from 22 or whatever to 15, sometimes 13. And that throws off our ratio as well. So it's campus size, definitely. And like I mentioned earlier, we've got 3 small campuses now, not just 2 this next school year.
And so what the table report does is it says certified classroom teacher that instructs students in some capacity goes into that number.
Yeah.
It's an efficiency way for them to get those numbers. That's why they do that. But you know, that is something that, so, you know, one of the governance things we say is, you know what, we're going to pursue very few class size waivers, and we're probably not going to pay as much. Or we're going to be more competitive with pay, but one of the direct results is going to be we could probably have more class size waivers every year. And that's sort of deciding who we are, so to speak.
Okay, so in order to bring it in line with the ratio, I see that there's a variance of 92 teachers. Would we have to actually fire teachers in order to get that reduction? It would just be done through attrition?
We would just slowly work through that through attrition and just be intentional about staffing and walk through it, you know, and say, there's no way we would ever want to say we just want to get rid of teachers. It would be like, we just have to start being very careful with staffing and pay more attention to those numbers. And what's going to happen, here's the hardest part, is you have some teachers that have a challenging class. Some years are more challenging than others. I can tell you, I remember last year, one specific kindergarten teacher, she had a real challenging year. And I remember her going talking about it, and you know, and then this year, a different one might. But what you're going to start looking at is, hey, we've got 2 teachers at this elementary school, and they both have 23 kids in their class. And we're like, okay, we need to sit tight and maybe not add a teacher until it gets to 25. Or, you know, what's the right governance number that we're feel good about, not feel good about, but knowing that that's the strike of the balance. And the hard part of that is when you look at what it costs for pay raises, where the money goes. I mean, you know, the majority of our pay and any of these pay increases and on these scales is that teacher number, and that's not a complaint. It's just a matter of fact. Like, I want to say over 60% of our salaries go to that group, and so and we love that, and we're happy to pay that. It's just that, to what degree do we want to be competitive with districts that are more efficient than us, that are 4 times our size, that have cleaner operations because of their size, and have a more significant fund balance that can adopt a deficit budget. And if we want to try to compete with them, it's going to cost us a lot, and it's going to be very, very challenging. And so, just like Taylor can't compete with us, I got an email, someone said, Taylor gave a 7% increase. Yeah, they did, and they're still paying less than we are, right? So,
By a lot.
By a lot. And so, you know, it is, who is Georgetown ISD? What do we want our identity to be? And we hired great teachers from Round Rock and Leander last year that are rock star teachers. And we probably lose rock star teachers to Round Rock and Leander too, as well. And we don't want to lose anyone to our competitors, but, you know, what is our MO? Is our identity going to be that we are going to pay less than some of our peers, but we're going to have overall lower student to teacher ratios collectively? Or do we want to try to be more competitive? Say, okay guys, we want to pay you more, but this is the price we're going to have to pay, and we're going to try to support you through this and work through this the best we can, and do it with balance and love and intentionality. But that's a choice.
If I would imagine we are already looking into this kind of stuff, but it's not just as simple as saying, you know, we want this kind of feeling of less kids, or, yeah, less kids per teacher and all that, but knowing, all right, we did our research. We know these school districts have the ratios better, worse, da, 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 but the things that are important to Georgetown, like graduation rates, if it's SAT, ACT scores, is it military college career readiness, all these items, how are those other districts that have higher or lower, how are they doing in those items that are important to us? Are they doing better? And they're able to just rock it out with more, like, they got more kids with less teachers and they're kicking butt on all these other items that's important to us? Or is there stuff that we said, these are the items that we said that's important to us? Are we doing these? Are we already doing really well at these? Because maybe we have less kids to teacher ratio. What are those items that, of course, we care about as Georgetown ISD, and will it truly help us overall with that?
Do we have any, I'm sure we've all heard I've heard people back and forth on the size of classroom doesn't matter or matters, right? People can argue that passionately both sides. I'm not a professional educator, but I would like to rely on some of our staff. It feels like somebody, Wes or a Melinda or somebody like that would probably have an idea or a position on that we could rely on,
Yeah.
right? And I really want to, sometimes you get these conversations and it's like, we're talking about, the way we're going about talking about this feels like we're saying, let's shift, what's making me uncomfortable is, it's feeling like we're saying, let's shift from 20 kids in a classroom to maybe 35 kids in a classroom. That's how it feels like we're talking about this, when and I want to make sure, because I don't think we weren't dropped in on this chart.
Right.
That gets your average.
But if you drop us in on this chart, I think we're second to the lowest in the whole region.
Right.
Is that
Yeah,
right?
that's what it is, yeah.
13.93?
Yeah, only Eaton has a better
Okay, so
ratio.
we're literally out of what looks like 10.
Not better.
So 10 or 12. We're the,
Well, better for class
we have the
size.
smallest,
I'm
For
was
money.
assuming that you were, yeah.
we have the smallest,
You're right.
second smallest
You're thinking money.
in, we'll call it Central Texas.
Yeah.
And Melanie, but words
Here's
matter,
that
right?
right
Like,
here,
the words are important. So to match, if we're talking about matching peers, to match our peers is a kid per class, 1.2.
Are we at 13.96? Because that says 2013.
It's, right here is
The next page.
2019, 2 pages
Go to the
later,
next page.
talks about
Right there.
13.93. So we've stayed pretty much the same for the last 7 years, looks like.
I'm looking at 2019 GISD is 13.93.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Or do you not have that slide? I don't think you do, because your slide's different than mine.
It's,
Very
you
bad.
gotta pull it
Yeah,
out
hers
here.
looks different. Hers goes to a different color.
Yeah.
So it's 13.93, so that dropped us in on that.
Yeah.
And it looks like we're second lowest.
But your question is,
So
is that, we're assigning value to it, but is there value to it?
Well,
There's
because
a
there, I
couple
mean,
of
as
things in
Pam pointed
there.
out, money-wise, I mean, that's 5 million. If we were to shift our ratio to match the average, that'd free up $5 million in our
I don't
budget.
know that, this is super anecdotal, like, I'm not a professional educator. I don't know why, but I don't want to be at the top of that chart with Lake Travis.
Right.
I don't feel good about being at the top of the chart, but do I feel weird about being at Round Rock, coincidentally? Which is
Right, I don't think exactly.
Come on now.
Literally exactly in the middle.
Yeah.
Do I feel bad about being at Round Rock's number of kids per class and Round Rock's K? I don't feel bad about that. Personally, I don't.
But
But
I
I
like
like
your
the
question,
educator.
is there any connection between
The offer.
these numbers, these student-teacher ratios, and the outcome we care about that I think we've
Well-
done a good job of saying, right?
Yeah.
Here are the things that we're worried about, here are the things we're trumpeting to the community, here are the things that I know, at least me, I'm trying to measure everything against that, you know, does that support a graduation rate, does it support a SAT,
It's a great
you
point.
know, so does this stuff, is Eanes kicking our butt and we're kicking like Travis's butt, right?
Right,
And if we're not, if those are totally disconnected,
correct. But it feels like we have, I mean, we've got a phenomenal staff, cabinet strategists who are super smart, who I feel like we could benefit from them
Yeah.
weighing, I hope you can't hear me, we could benefit from them weighing in on that
yeah,
at some
yeah,
point though,
yeah.
right?
But it needs to not just be anecdotal, it needs to be something firmer than.
Yeah.
That's the difficult challenge at the macro level, is trying to break it down so you have, we need to try to figure out how to make that,
Yeah.
because,
A bunch of kids and research them.
right. So like the latest research, I'll have to go back and look it up again, but if I'm not mistaken, the number that started showing statistical significance in increased student performance with classroom student-teacher ratio was 12.
Oh, well, I was thinking 13 something.
Yeah.
Last I heard. So it was like 13 was where you start to see an improvement, and it's like 25 is where it's too much.
Yeah, and
So
so,
is that
That's a
why?
big
yeah.
range.
So
It's like
the-
everything in between is going to be roughly the same, but you're going to see a big difference when you get to
Those
class
are
size that
giant,
low.
giant markers.
And we're not
gonna touch
we're not
any of
gonna
those.
touch
We're
any
not
of
getting
those.
there.
22-1 came into existence when
It was Bill White, right?
behind a closed door when the governor or someone said, what's the average class size in the state of Texas right now? 22-1? All right, that's the number.
Yeah, right, somebody write that down.
There was no research done on student
Well, it
performance.
sounds like the more research you get, because I've heard something similar.
Yeah, it's
where
down to
there's
like
just
12.
giant brackets out there, and everyone's in between those, so adjust on here or here, like a kid.
Right.
Now, we would probably all know, anecdotally, like you just said, going from 21 kids to 22 kids could absolutely mean nothing in the world. It could be like,
Oh, it could be a showstopper.
Nuclear.
Depends on the kid.
whoa,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
But
Depends
that's
on
the
the
same as going from 16
Yeah.
to 17.
Yeah.
With
Depending on one
a very
kid, you can make or
challenging
break the entire.
student.
Yeah, yeah. And I know, just again, anecdotally, you know, you go in and you guys have done this too, you just stand in the hallway for a few minutes, and it's, my gut is, man, she needs fewer kids. You know, just watching them trying to get to the cafeteria. That's my gut
I
reaction.
thought that walking by with the teacher was like 8 kids though.
Yeah, no, I
Depending on
agree.
the kids.
Yeah, I agree. And so anyway, so that's if from a science standpoint, to the extent we can get there, if that's true, if the bumpers are like 12 and 25, then we probably need to seriously talk about this.
I'm interested in that.
I'm interested.
And it's just something that has to be done carefully, something that we have to be very strategic with.
That could take years to phase in, right?
It could take a couple of years to
With
phase in.
student growth coming and here,
You get more
that
opportunities.
helps, yes.
Yeah.
It lends its opportunity to.
And it won't be evenly distributed. Like
No.
you said, a new school, by design, you gotta have, you know,
Yeah.
as opposed, you know, as the schools mature and you can, the
can
difference
absorb
between
it.
5 fifth grade classes and 6 fifth grade classes, yeah, we can pull that off, but 1 to 2, you can't pull
Guys,
that.
I was absorbing 1,000 students a year for 3.5 years, and I didn't lose a wink of sleep at night, and it was a bang, bang, bang.
Yeah.
Because we had 20, we were absorbing, we had staff, we had the capacity to absorb it. We're a 12,000 student district
Absorb
that
350 a year.
we can't absorb as easily because of the volume of people we have.
Yeah.
And so, you know, there is an economy of scale factor in businesses that with volume you can become more efficient. And so, but this isn't a regular business. This is teachers and classrooms with students that have a diverse range of needs, and every campus is different. And so, working with our principals and our staff to say, okay, how can we be strategic with this? It's going to be important, but some people will say, oh, well, you just do it through retirements. I think right now we only have maybe 10 retirements this year from Georgetown ISD. 7 to 10, I think, is what
That's
we're looking
great
at
sign.
for employee recognition. We don't have that many.
Wow.
And so people are like, you can absorb. Well, no, you can't. You have to be strategic. But with growth, we can incrementally chip away at that. But we, you know, what's important to that is for us is like, okay, how do we talk our teachers through and our staff through, okay, we want to do these things, what's the right balance for Georgetown ISD? Knowing that there's going to be some people that appreciate it and there's going to be some people that don't appreciate it. But, you know, if we align our behaviors to our beliefs and we try to navigate it strategically, hopefully, we won't damage relationships with people. And that's the worry anytime you start going through any of this.
That's good work.
It's a concern.
And Mr. Webb, if, after he speaks, potentially everyone else would want a little break.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Are we gonna be done with this topic at that point?
I don't know. I can just take a break right now.
We don't get paid by the hour, we're here all night.
Or walk off one of these topics.
Yeah,
There we
yeah,
go.
y'all can't. This is a really stupid question, so you might want to go to the bathroom. You've probably covered this already. In all these scenarios, do these include the additional teachers that are going to be hired for growth, or are these increases, are they baked in using existing staff with raises layered upon whatever the scenario is that you represent in each slide? Are these the same number of teachers as 1920, or the additional teachers?
So when TASB did their study, they were 1920 teachers, because they didn't have our new.
Right.
When we look at 5 and 6, I've included the new staff
Okay.
And so you
coming
can-
in at a higher rate than,
And you could go do that for the other scenarios, the other TASB models.
yes.
But they're not included in these scenarios as presented on here?
No, because they're already in our base
Okay.
salary on, so this would be the change for the new teacher, the current staff.
Okay.
In the projected budget, you'll see the base salary, the salaries right here for student growth and stuff, that's where we're realizing the
The new
increase in
staff.
our FTEs.
Okay.
At the existing rate, that's new people at the existing rate.
Right,
Yeah.
because they don't get a raise, I mean,
And-
they're gonna be
And
coming
so
in
scenario
on a higher
3
scale.
does,
$4 million.
so Pam, scenario 3 does not have
Right.
those employees figured in the same way they're figured in into this salary expenditures.
Right,
So we would have to roll that into scenario 3
Yeah,
of the
that's what I
TASB
was-
scenarios.
So,
but then you decrease
So-
it from our base plan, our base salary. So I'd remove it from the 84, their salaries.
It's already baked in, is what you're saying.
It's
Okay.
baked in,
well,
Okay.
let me ask
but
you
not
a
with a
different
raise,
way.
we're
with
not
the-
giving
they're
them
gonna
a
do it,
raise.
right? They're gonna come in.
On
with
scenario
salary.
3,
Okay, they're
$3.8
already going
million
down salary.
increase.
Right.
Yeah,
the $3.8 million increase on scenario 3, for example,
That's our current
doesn't
teacher.
include additional teachers that are going to need to be hired for next year. That's based on giving this raise based on this model for the existing teachers as of right now, not the
As
number of
of-
teachers we're going to start school with.
Right, as of the study time that they did it,
Okay.
not realizing how many people are resigning, because we're gonna have teachers leaving. They're already
So
here.
if our
So
number,
really, the big change in the number may be a net of some
More.
amount of new, yes,
because
which it is.
if our net teachers in the fall increase by 40
Let's say-
teachers,
Right,
then this 3.8, I've already lost that slide, 3.7 or whatever isn't accurate. It's going to be this much plus 40 more teachers at whatever they're adjusted.
if you put it into that slide, or
Yeah.
do you put it here in your budget
Okay.
under growth?
Yeah,
You don't wanna double count it.
Right, okay.
Because you're not going to give the 40 new people raises.
they just come into the scale.
Because
You
they just
hire
got
them in
here.
at that level, yeah,
Yes,
that's
and
right.
that's what's
Yeah,
indicated
that's right.
here
Here's-
in
so
our
here's
salary
zero
line.
raise.
Right.
Oh,
Okay.
Do you see what I
There's
mean?
zero
Yeah.
raises.
Yes, all of a sudden I got it. Okay.
Otherwise, you're
That
going to
happens to me a
double,
lot.
Yeah. I had to watch that one go around 3 times.
you're not going to double count their salary, but you're going
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
double count
Yeah, got
an
it.
increase that's
Yep,
not
yep,
going to
yep,
happen.
yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
So the other part of the TASB report was where we fell market for teachers and staff and how we are above market in administration salaries. And so I'm curious, do we have a strategy for making that also fall into line? Because
Maybe I should use Russian during that conversation.
Well,
it seems like
yeah.
it's easy to say, well, we're not like Travis, we don't have that revenue, we're not going to pay that teacher salary. But if our administrator salaries are more in line with a wealthier district, then that kind of negates that argument.
So-
Makes it more difficult.
I mean, I have a slide here that oops, wherever it is. I don't know why it's not showing up. Present, oh, maybe it's hidden, hang on. Yep, it is.
And that's where that one strategy, I think number 3, only looks at like one, more or less COL or barely COL for those guys, whereas it's 3.5, right? So it flattens those guys out. At least that's how I thought about it.
Oh, yeah, I don't.
There were
I
some
would remember
administrators
from the
that
survey
were,
if it shows what those scenarios do for administration also.
because I don't remember,
Like a graph to show that.
I need to look at the final
Yeah.
report again.
So what you would do is you just don't give those administrators raises.
Raises, right. So they're frozen
Yeah. I mean, I
for those certain
understand the
areas.
strategy for doing that. We've attracted really, really exceptional talent, and I want to reward that. I don't argue with that at all. I do like the idea of things being more aligned across the board in terms of what we're offering our people. If everybody is going to be paid well, everybody gets paid well. Or if we're going to be under market, then we're just under market across the board. It feels skewed, and I think we could do better with parity in that respect.
Yeah, and that's why we try to break it out for you guys to see, like.
That's helpful. It
The
really
majority
is.
of the raises that are recommended are in the millions, 1 point something million for that population. So one of the things that comes up quite a bit is, we're compared to Round Rock, and again, not saying we're going to be Round Rock, but if we're going to compare us to Round Rock, let's talk about it. And so you can see our elementary principals work, that group is going to come up on the day's raise, but you can see the gap in those salaries in comparison. And you can see a lot of our staff work more days and make less money than when you compare to Round Rock. And so you're looking at thousands of dollars in gaps, and there's a gap of about, I don't know, what's that number?
For the
For
teacher,
the teacher one, it was
541.
$541, the gap in the midpoint on that scale between teachers and administrators. And so, what we have to be careful with is who are we comparing ourselves to? And if we're going to talk about Round Rock, well, our teacher's gap at midpoint is $541, but my elementary principal's gap is $15,000. And you talk about, and not everybody.
And working more days.
And some of them are working more days than their peers. And so, it's beneficial to some groups to compare us to Round Rock, but it's not beneficial. And so
that's what I just realized. That's what happened here was that TASB survey was like 7 or 8 or 9 districts, and we were the summary slide that felt like something kicked me in the gut was that our these folks roughly
we're like 107%.
Were 3% more. It was 3%. We were 3% under on teachers and 3% over on that group, right? And but that was relative to 6 or 7 or 8 districts. We're at not Round Rock.
Yeah, it is a different comparison.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what we want to do is we definitely want to focus our pay increases on our teacher contracts. Absolutely. We want that to be closer to the middle as well.
You missed it, we solved it.
What's the answer?
Maybe yes.
41.
Yeah, we're going up 100%.
And so in some of the adjustments, we're going to recommend that we adjust some principal and assistant principal salaries because,
Their days,
they're so far.
for sure.
by days, because they are getting smoked by some of our peers, and obviously they can go work other places too. And we've been very fortunate that we've been able to hire some very talented people to come from neighboring districts because of the work that we're doing. And so we have to, once again, who are we going to be, right? It's like, okay, you're probably not going to make as much in Georgetown as a district administrator as Round Rock, but you're going to leave Round Rock to come work here because this appeals to you and you believe as we believe. And so we want is people who are like-minded and honor our vision, mission, beliefs, and want to do the work that we do, and know that they're probably going to make a little less money. But we want to get more competitive, knowing we won't ever match that administrative pay scale. Oh, I don't see how we can because we don't have the capacity. But we want to close the gap some. But do we hire teachers that are aligned to our vision, mission, beliefs? Or are their vision and mission beliefs better aligned around Raleigh? Well, then they may go work there. We're going to hire administrators who align to our vision, mission, beliefs, or are they better aligned around Raleigh? And they'll choose between the two. But I think that we've just got to, we want to bring our teacher pay up, so our recommendations to the board will be weighted towards increasing teacher pay scales. And now it's what's the balance that strikes us the best. And we didn't expect you to be able to answer or solve any problems or leave here with a recommendation, but we felt like we needed to try to continue to get you more information, and you've given us things to consider to try to bring back better information. And I know that we'll be able to work on that and provide you updates in your weekly report as we find some stuff. So we'll talk through this some more and be able to bring you more information.
More
It looks like
answers.
really at the end of the day that, you know, anything we want to do that has any meaningful impact is somewhere between 2 and 4 above. So we're gonna trend up 4 million just because the world turned.
Which scenarios are you?
So
Just
so
for
let me
budget.
say this 2 ways, or 2 pieces to this is the right way to say it. First, if we don't do anything, we're gonna both generate and spend $4 million regardless, and that's just student growth. We don't touch the pay scales, we don't change anybody, we don't catch up anybody, we don't do anything, we just stand here. We're going to move $4 million, right? So if we want to do something, it's another 3 pushing 4. And the only thing I've heard so far this afternoon that coughs up $4 million is the student classroom size, right? Have we fielded some other solution for $4 million other than classroom size?
One of the things, so we're starting to go through chunks of downsizing different budgets, saying, okay, cut travel here, cut travel there. One of the things that we're looking at is.
$4 million or is it?
No, we
That's what
we can probably find, we're gonna try to go, can we dig up 1.5 million?
Could you?
That's what we're working through now with subs. So for example, are we gonna need fewer subs? Do we need to pull teachers out of class less frequently in the upcoming year for professional learning? Will the instructional coaches help in that model? Can we reduce our sub costs? Can we reduce our travel costs? And those are in reduction in budgets. For example, major purchases. There's $564,000 requested in major purchases. Last year, we didn't do any in our budget. And so, and we're going through those and saying, okay, what of these can be done through bond savings that qualify? Well, we've pretty much done that as much as we can, and we're still combing through, but we may have to hit pause on some major purchases, but we owe you an explanation of the consequences of that reduction. There's positive and negative.
Yeah, if you already skipped it once, you skip twice, then you got a bunch of stuff that doesn't work.
And the hard part is about in a $130 million budget, 86% of that salary. And then of that 86%, there's I don't remember the exact percentage number, is for certain employee populations that are the majority of our employees. And that's where, to make those big numbers up, that's where we have to start looking. But, and then, so what are we gonna live without on the services we provide? We spend a lot of money on HVAC repair, and we're adding space. We need an HVAC person because we don't want people getting hot in classrooms and changing filters and all that. So we're going to have someone on the HVAC side. Well, that's a staffing unit that we're going to have to consider because we're getting behind on HVAC.
What are we doing currently? Contracting that out?
No, it's better for us to go that route.
In-house. So, we have a couple of dynamics that we've seen the last year and this year. Title I funds are reducing or continuing to decrease. However, IDB funds, which is SPED, have luckily remained, they've reduced some, but remained, more constant. However, our SPED population has exploded, yes. So that's hitting our general fund budget as well, those positions to accommodate that, that population of students. So there's a few dynamics. We do offer quite a few programs that we are now seeing funding for, which we hope to continue, not sure, in the next legislative session. But dual language, you know, is an expensive program as far as staffing, just like teaming and block scheduling at the high school. So, you know, there's great reasons to be here in Georgetown, absolutely, into this school district versus others. The opportunities, the certifications, the CCMR amount of money that we put into that program. So,
Block scheduling costs a lot of money.
yeah, it does.
At its heart, it's still a student-teacher ratio thing. You know, block scheduling changes, it's a way for us to manipulate student-teacher ratio, really. And that cost, in our case, it pushes the cost up, you know, it makes it experience
More
more
teachers to execute it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes
it
more
does.
teachers to execute. Yeah. Yep. The same thing as DL. You know, the model we use for DL, I think works really, really well. I think it's a very successful program, and to the extent that we got a waiting, we use it as a waiting list, you know.
And now we're at the decision, do we move it to middle school?
Right.
Yeah, sure.
But dual language is a good example because we had some implementation flaws, and I've got to see some feedback from some of our dual language teachers on, hey, here's some things we think we ought to do to improve that, and that's what we're working towards now. And can we make dual language more accessible to more kids?
Yeah.
And those are some of the things that we're talking about now.
I'm just scrape about $5 million.
Do we need a break?
Yeah.
I do appreciate y'all
Oh, it's super cheerful.
having another workshop in between these short, 2 weeks or whatever workshops are great during this crunch time, for sure.
This is super important stuff, and as fast as the world is changing, I mean, it's probably going to change again even before we meet again in 2 weeks, but.
And after
And
the
I think-
18th,
I think we've got to stay on top of this stuff because we want to be, we all wish we had another $5 million to give teachers raises, and we've also, we're all taxpayers, we've got to kind of balance that with what we see coming down the pipe, what we anticipate, what's responsible. I think some of these districts that went out and passed budgets last month that did big raises, they're going to regret it. I mean, I just can't imagine.
Oh, I know some of those superintendents have already going, oh my gosh.
We don't have the opportunity or the option to generate revenue. I mean, we're revenue, the numbers that we have.
Right, so.
It's not a business.
No.
I don't say any of that because I don't wish we couldn't give those raises, but it's just changing all the time. It's crazy.
So, for example, one of the ways that Hutto is going to fund their raises is they're going to a July budget calendar year this year. They're going to see a gain on fund balance, and they had another fund balance swing that they're able to capitalize on, and they've gotten a lot of growth lately through economic development, and so they're able to absorb that this year. And but if funding reduces greatly, how sustainable is that raise? It'll be easier for Pflugerville. We're looking, because Pflugerville, with their size, they have an assigned fund balance they're setting aside for some of these contingencies should reductions occur. And so, going back to when we had some struggles financially in 2009, 10, 11 in that range, that led to some serious district challenges in which brought Steve West out of retirement to get us on track, and we've gotten a lot better. Our fund balance is better to where it's supposed to be, and so we'll be talking about, okay, how do we start getting strategic with fund balance as we make more progress, and that is an important aspect for districts. Having a healthy fund balance is important to your lifeline for a lot of different things, and it's important for emergencies as well.
What's our fund balance sitting at?
Yeah, that's awesome.
28.
Yeah.
And you said a healthy fund balance is generally 3 months
3
of
months.
operating costs? Is that the total cost divided by 12 or 10? Or total
Operating divided by 12.
by 12?
So one of the only other,
3 is the
yeah,
least amount of fund balance?
Yes.
You should.
That doesn't
That's-
sound like
So
a
we're actually
Well-
below that.
Oh, well,
By
this,
by
because the
12.
budget grew,
Yeah. we
but
are.
current budget,
what's their guidelines on, is it 3 to 6, is it 3 to 4? Is it
they say at least 3.
they say 3.
at least 3? It seems
It affects bond ratings and.
They don't say at least, they say 3.
We're about 2.
One thing,
75 days to 90 days, Scott, is
Yeah.
their range.
Okay.
the only other thing on our agenda item that I can speak to you real quick, and then we can be done, is the high school graduation plans. And so, what you have right now is, a very interesting scenario of what we're doing to celebrate seniors and do graduation. And so, for example, when we were seeing that graduations were going to be unlikely, we worked out a scenario where the kiddos could get their cap and gown pickup, have a diploma ceremony, drive through, get to go on stage with a few parents, and we would have a parade. And there were some things about that we didn't roll out as efficiently as we should have, and I should have, I just regret the way I didn't communicate that as clearly as I should have. But with that, now what we're looking at is the expectancy to be able to have an outdoor stadium graduation as of June 1st. So one of the things that we're looking at is what would it require for us to have a June graduation at the stadium for each high school, June 4th, 5th, and 6th. And so we're working through that now. There are some significant requirements for pre-screening. You would be seeing no more than family groups of no more than 5, social distance from the next family group using both bleacher sets. Georgetown High School could have 5. We think we could do more for the others, but there still has to be social distancing. There are some liabilities that we're navigating as far as health wellness checks and do, so some of the superintendents and I were discussing, does that mean they need to sign some sort of waiver before they come to graduation on the back of a ticket? We don't know, but our team is walking through how do you stage people out to get into the stadium? How many hours is that going to take? And how do you stage kids onto the field? The kids are the easier part as far as this social distancing them out. And you would look at a graduation where the stage would be at the end zone by the scoreboard so that they could see from both ends. And I guess the main thing I want to make sure, this is something to vote on, but, if the board is concerned about us pursuing an outdoor graduation, we would need to know about it. What we do believe is that moving it out beyond that first week is going to get more and more uncertain and unpredictable. And in conversation with our principals and looking at this saying it is, let's get these kids graduated and let them start their summer and get ready for college, military career. But let's celebrate them with the stadium graduation.
What's the unpredictability about moving it farther out?
Whether or not but it's whether or not we're allowed to have a graduation later on.
I read someplace, maybe AISD has their schedule for August.
I saw that.
Who does?
Did you see
Outdoors?
Southwestern has it for August?
For their May kids, they're gonna do it in October,
They're making them come back to homecoming.
and you don't get your stuff.
I know, but also like Georgetown or Eastview have twice as many graduates as Southwestern.
Yeah.
It's tiny.
Yeah.
So I have nothing valid to base this on other than what I've been seeing. And what I'm worried about is if we don't capitalize on this first week of June and get our kids graduated, I'm concerned that we might lose that privilege later.
I feel like that's likely anyway.
And
Between now and the next 2 weeks.
So like when kids start
people
getting
are
into July and
dispersing.
August,
Yeah, they're going.
kids are
I
already.
just mean, I feel like all this
I'm-
stuff's just gonna flare back up and they're just gonna take
Yep.
it right back.
I think on the 18th, that's gonna be a really bad press conference. It's gonna go horribly
my fear.
wrong, and he's gonna shut it all down. Anyway, having said that, I'm with you on, hey, if we take a shot, that's the only way we can take a shot at it, let's take a
I
shot.
agree. If
I like
there's
that
a chance.
Let's do it.
we've
Plan
got the
for it, and if we have
3
to
days you
cancel
said,
it,
yeah,
we
first of
cancel it.
June.
Yeah.
Have it pulls a rug out from under us, and, which you will not, you're totally right.
And so, and I think one of our regrets is just like, okay, how do we make sure we're keeping our people clear? So the principals and I, we're agreeing, we're not communicating anything until we're all right where we're going to need to be and have all our plans lined out. But we still have in place the diploma ceremonies, the cap and gown pickups. I saw LaToya put out something on Twitter, she had all those yard signs for kids. They're going through all those different things. And I know that Ms. Acosta is meeting with principals to make sure, you know, they're coordinating their activities. I'll ask Courtney to get you guys an update on what each campus is doing specifically and put it in the weekly.
That would be really helpful.
And to make sure you
At the
have,
stadium graduation, they would not walk the stage?
no, they would walk the stage at the stadium
What
graduation.
is the,
I'm sorry.
Would we not do
what is the,
one or the, if we do the stadium, would we not do the other stuff?
Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. They will do diploma, their cap and gown stuff, beginning of their cap and gowns, they have to get those anyway. We can't rehearse graduation, but if we get to move to a June graduation, they'll still pick up their cap and gowns. We still plan on having the parade, and then they would have a stadium graduation.
with, where they get their diplomas?
Well, yeah, so they would walk across the stage, we would have to be 6 feet, they'd have to take a picture.
It's like
pick it
that
up
They'll
lightning.
pick it up, they'll pick up their diploma cover, and then they'll walk over here, and they'll like, there will be the principal, they're going like, you know, taking a picture with the principal. And if
It's
so.
part of their story.
Yeah, and so they have, there are, you know, there are really cool masks being ordered for all the students. And so I know that they're working to make this. I wouldn't be surprised if you saw every senior that has a mask with EV, R, or G on it, something like that. You know, I don't know if I'm blowing anything special. I don't know if they've done that or not. I could have just made a bad reveal, and I'm going to be chastised by principals. So if he takes that option away, we do have the plan of Rasharte comes up and does a diploma ceremony where they get to take a picture on a stage. Their parents can come in and do all of that social distancing if the outdoor stadium graduation
And
goes away.
you think we'd do that on those same dates?
Yeah.
Just stick to those, something's gonna happen on those dates, think that
Yeah.
about it, or,
They're going to stick the 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th
yeah.
of May. We would go back to May. If we get to do it, so that's why we're waiting on May, May 18th. We're going to do a June, that's our date to say, okay, we're going with June 4th, 5th, and 6th, or we're doing the May 27th, 28th, 29th.
And how
Yeah.
how does the parade not take 39 hours? What is the process?
So, there is a very thought out plan. We worked with the city of Georgetown and the PD of how we're going to stack kids. They've asked us to not use trailers for safety concerns, which is very understandable. We have a
I saw
stack.
something that said trailers are allowed.
I
Well,
saw that too.
Yeah, I read that somewhere. I'm not making that up. I saw
you're
that.
not making that up,
No, not even.
but it got shot down.
But it got shut down.
I have not seen that follow-up.
The
Do
story
kids
change.
know that?
Not yet.
They do now because.
They
Can't
do
do now. Thanks, Elizabeth.
So this is something that we just got yesterday. It was, look, if we do trailers, it's going to take 10 hours.
The kids can't walk instead of being in a car?
Where are they gonna gather
From GHS to the square?
No.
from East Street to the
They
square?
need
Just
the
thinking,
exercise.
if there's a thousand,
So,
maybe they won't do it.
How-
Participation here.
that's what we're working
Let's
with.
see the May.
Sorry, y'all didn't let him finish his story.
How do you
Y'all
help
didn't let him
the kids who don't
finish
have
his
cars, the
story.
kids who can't drive?
Hey, let him finish his story first,
Sorry.
and then let's jump in.
And then let's jump in.
So what they're working through is how can we stack kids, which kids want to participate,
What does
and
stack kids mean?
Line up.
can kids, how many kids can be in a car? What's
Oh, in the
appropriate.
car?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And then we have the logistics of stacking the kids starting at GHS, right there at Austin Avenue, going down around by the tennis courts, throughout by the baseball fields, all the way to the big parking lot. So we're working on those logistics. They would come up Austin Avenue, turn east on 8th Street, and then turn south on Main and go out to 2nd Street and then disperse that way. So it's a pretty short route. And the parade route would begin at the light by Monumento at 2nd Street. And that's where we'd ask people to start stacking to celebrate the kiddos. And if the participation numbers is what we're trying to gauge, and and ultimately we think it's doable, we believe it's doable, but it could be revealed to us that it's not. But right now we think it
That's
is.
funny.
Well, and I think that's something really critical to say out loud here is that, whatever changes we're having to implement in this is not we're not sitting around here coming up with, I mean,
We're
that's,
not.
we're not.
It's being imposed
It
on
is
us.
being imposed on us. I want to say that very loudly and clearly. This is not, it's not that we were like, hey, we're uncomfortable with the whole idea of people
Right.
being around each other. No, we're being told, thou shalt not do it.
And now we're being told,
Maybe.
we can have a
Sort of.
graduation.
Maybe kind of.
After January, we'll let you know for sure in a few weeks.
Right, yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so, I have a meeting with principals tomorrow, and we'll collectively gonna say, okay,
Yeah.
let's get this straight, and then I'll update the board after that. And before we communicate anything to the community. Let you know.
Although you're clear on trailers now, right?
No trailers.
Now I am,
Okay.
I think.
No trailers.
For now,
Trailers-
until tomorrow.
Trailers were a go until a phone call yesterday afternoon,
No.
and now they're not a go.
They were okay till they weren't.
So,
Yeah.
and so now I'm gonna have to, nah.
It's gonna go over like a.
Oh, I was just doing the math in my head. So the governor's next press conference is the same day as our next school board meeting.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, it-
Oh,
I did
that's
not
awesome.
plan that. That's not me.
Good luck planning for that one.
The agenda's
We'd have
blank.
total maybe 850 kids.
Yes.
And he's I wonder if he's gonna do it 2:30.
HS closer to 480.
Yeah.
Around
What the hell did he say? Yeah.
Was he doing like a phone call at 2:30 and then did his presser later? Because I didn't see it until later.
He didn't, I mean, everybody was wound up to.
Okay.
Speaking of our next school board meeting, can we do this format for that meeting? Or do we need to do it from home or?
All right, so we're gonna adjourn?
Yes, I would like to.
All right.
Are you guys good? We're all.
Not really, but.
As good as you can?
Yeah, that's just.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. 1, 2, 3, go.
Carmen, 5:58.